I welcome you on behalf of the Shallowford community to this online worship service, Sunday, June the 28th. I am grateful that you have found us in this space and hope that these moments of meditation and worship will bless you. I give thanks for the worship team that continues to work creatively and hard in putting together all of these services. We've got a couple of pictures for you of that group here in the sanctuary, doing their best to stay distanced and to bring you the gifts and talents that they have. Grateful we are for this community, for your presence, and for our time together this morning. Thanks be to God.
Prayer of the Day. In the silence of the morning, I am alive to the new day's light, alert to the first sounds of the creatures. In the silence of my heart, I hear the yearnings that are in me and the fears, the hopes that arise from within and the doubts that trouble my soul. In the beginnings of this day, O God, before the night's stillness is lost to the day's busyness, open to me the treasure of my inner being, that in the midst of this day's busyness I may draw on wisdom. Assure me again of my origins in you. Assure me again that my true depths are of you.
Please listen to our prayer for new beginnings. That truth has been inscribed into my heart and into the heart of every human being, there to be read and reverenced. Thanks be to you, O God, that there are ways of seeing and sensitivities of knowing hidden deep in the palace of the soul, waiting to be discovered, ready to be set free. Thanks be to you. Open my senses to wisdom's inner promptings, that I might give voice to what I hear in my soul, and be changed for the healing of the world, that I may listen for truth in every living soul, and be changed for the well-being of the world. Amen.
Then God commanded,
"Let the earth produce all kinds of animal life, domestic and wild, large and small."
and it was done. So God made them all, and he was pleased with what he saw. Then God said,
"And now we will make human beings. They will be like us and resemble us. They will have power over the fish, the birds, and all animals, domestic and wild, large and small."
So God created human beings, making them to be like himself. He created them male and female, blessed them, and said,
"Have many children, so that your descendants will live all over the earth and bring it under their control. I am putting you in charge of the fish, the birds, and all the wild animals. I have provided all kinds of grain and all kinds of fruit for you to eat. But for all the wild animals and for all the birds, I have provided grass and leafy plants for food."
And it was done. God looked at everything he had made, and he was very pleased.
Evening passed and morning came. That was the 6th day.
Just a reminder that we are following J. Philip Newell's Book of Creation as our guide for this 3-week creation exploration. Each day in the Genesis 1 account of creation is given a chapter in Newell's book as he introduces us to this rich Celtic tradition. A tradition that teaches that God speaks to us through 2 books, the book of Scripture, physically little, and the book of creation, as vast as the universe. The cosmos is like a living, sacred text that we can read and interpret. And so today we come to the account of days 6 and 7 in the Genesis story. And these creating days of Genesis are seen not as a chronological account, but a meditation on the ever-present mystery of creation. Day 6 brings us to humanity, created in the image of God. Humanity contains within it the mystery of all that has been created. We are created, as is all of creation, not out of nothing, ex nihilo, but out of the very essence of God. What is deepest in us in creation is of God. And so creation is to be reverenced and treasured, seen as gifted from God, an intertwined oneness. And the notes of the universe sound forth filled with God. Alexander Scott says that there is woven through us a fiber of royal nature, the removal of which would be total disintegration. And so the extent to which we fail to reflect the image of God is the extent to which we have become less than human. Sin is seen as the soul's forgetfulness of itself. The divine likeness within us may be hidden or forgotten, held in terrible bondage by wrongdoing, but the image of God remains at the heart of who we are. Grace is viewed as re-establishing, restoring what is deepest within us. Newell reminds us that we have been given the gospel not to tell us that there are deep flaws and spots in our humanity, for we more or less know that about ourselves. We have been given the gospel to tell us that which we do not know about ourselves, or what we have forgotten. Far deeper than the worst failings of our lives is the blessing of our nature. Christ restores our memory to what is truly natural, liberates us, reveals to us God's self and our true self. The doctrine of substitutionary atonement, taught in the Western tradition, teaches us that Christ died for our inherent sinfulness, that God requires payment to change the tune of the universe from judgment to forgiveness, and that Christ is the perfect sacrifice to stand in our place, so a substitute is made. The Celtic tradition would counter that and say that the act of Jesus' death was no less sacrifice, that the act of self-giving on the cross, though, is the ultimate revealing of God's love. And that this ultimate revealing of love, it illuminates the falseness in our own lives. And grace leads us to see the truth in ourselves as we see the truth in God. And that truth is that we are created in the image of God. And what is deepest in us is of God. Again, the Western Church's teaching of original sin that claims that what is deepest within us is opposed to God. It's the milk that most of us have been fed as infants. The Celtic tradition opposes this starting place of origin. Deepest within us is of God. This deepest desire within connects us to a desire for God. As E. Regina said, we are longing for God, while at the same time not knowing what it is that we long for. The greatest desire, the greatest longing is for love. The love that is at the beginning and is at the heart of all of life. And we are reawakened to that truth and that desire through Christ. Redemption is about recovering this treasure that is buried deep in the field of our lives. Thanks be to God.
For the
it, Lord. The sheer sport of it, Lord. You made the great Leviathan. He's a dragon who lives underneath the sea, and you made him as a playmate just for thee, for the sport of it. You made the sun and the moon and stars and formed the land. The winds are your messengers, the waters you command. For the sport of it, Lord, the sheer sport of it, Lord. You made the great Leviathan. He's a dragon who lives underneath the sea, and you made him as a playmate just for thee, for the sport of it. You made the towering cedar trees where storks may nest, high hills for the mountain goats, and cliffs where badgers rest. For the sport of it, Lord, the sheer sport of it, Lord. You made the great Leviathan. He's a dragon who lives underneath the sea, and you made him as a playmate just for thee, for the sport of it. You made the night so beasts could prowl and lions roar, seas with creatures great and small, and skies where eagles soar. For the sport of it, Lord, the sheer sport of it, Lord. You made the great Leviathan. He's a dragon who lives underneath the sea, and you made him as a playmate just for thee, for the sport of it. Long as I live, I'll sing to you and bless your name. Your creation's marvelous, too manifold to name. For the sport of it, Lord, the sheer sport of it, Lord. You made the great Leviathan. He's a dragon who lives underneath the sea, and you made him as a playmate just for thee, for the sport, for the sport, for the sport of it.
Like an infant's open-eyed wonder in the insights of a wise grandmother, like a young man's vision for justice in the vitality that shines in a girl's face, like tears that flow in a friend bereaved and laughter in a lover's eyes. You have given me ways of seeing, O God. You have endowed me with sight like your own. Let these be alive in me this day. Let these be alive in me.
And so the whole universe was completed. By the seventh day, God finished what he had been doing and stopped working. He blessed the seventh day and set it apart as a special day, because by that day he had completed his creation and stopped working. And that is how the universe was created.
Day 7 of creation brings us to the restfulness of God, this stillness that is part of God's ongoing creativity. There is a rhythm of restfulness and production that balance the earth cycles of life. They are built into the natural pattern of restfulness and creativity. I was reminded as I was reading this chapter of wife Janet and I's forays into Death Valley in the season of wildflower in the spring. Hidden in the wildflower seeds of Death Valley is the mystery of restorative energy, patiently enduring the harshest conditions over long days and months and years of desert sun and wild wind, bursting forth in a radical brilliance at the barest of a spring shower, broadcasting a delightful palette of color and texture on the desert floor for the briefest span of days, to soon wither to the dry mystery of seed and begin this restorative cycle once again. Day 7 reminds us of these built-in patterns that are natural to our created order, and that if we fail to establish regular patterns of stillness and rest, our creativity will be either exhausted or shallow. Our fresh creative energy is sustained by the restorative depths of restfulness and stillness. Creativity without rest, productivity without renewal, leads to an exhaustion of inner resources. We have attempted in our Shallowford community through our pilgrimage ministry to find our rest with these ancient practices of meditation and contemplation. We've studied the ways of the desert Abbas and Ammas, the tried and true practices of prayer that have passed through the filter of the saints over centuries. We've prayed with beads and with icons. We practiced our Lectio Divina. We've sought the still waters of prayer, of meditation, of contemplation. And Day 7 speaks to that practice of restfulness and stillness that balances our productivity and increases our awareness of the sacred. In addition to that practice, stillness, one of the key tenets of the Celtic tradition, it's certainly one of the things that drew me to this tradition in the first place, is this emphasis on an awareness of God in the midst of all of life. Prayers were recited in the context of work and daily routine. This tradition promotes a restful awareness in everything that we do. It seeks to teach us about holding a stillness of perspective in the midst of busyness. In all things we are surrounded by eternity, writes Kenneth White. This big book of creation is forever being birthed. It is as vast as the universe, and the sacred rhythms of God, they sound out to us with every breath that we take. Anytime, our God says, I am with you anytime. I am with you always. I am as close as your breath, and as far as the furthest expanse of the universe. Pay attention. Be aware, whispers the deep love of our life. I am right here. Day 7 calls to us in the stillness of every moment. Thanks be to God.
My Lord, he said unto me, do you like my garden so fair? You may live in this garden if you keep the grasses green. And I'll return in the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. Oh, this earth is a garden, the garden of my Lord. And he walks in this garden in the cool of the day. My Lord, he said unto me, do you like my pastures of green? You may live in this garden if you will feed my lambs. And I'll return in the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. Oh, this earth is a garden, the garden of my Lord. And he walked in this garden in the cool of the day. Then my Lord, he said unto me, do you like my garden so free? You may live in this garden if you keep my people free. And I'll return in the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. Oh, this earth is a garden, the garden of my Lord. And he walks in this garden in the cool of the day.
Hear these words of invitation as we offer ourselves to God. With thanksgiving for God's gifts to us, let us offer ourselves and the fruits of our labor for God's work in the world.
God saw that earth was good, and with a joyful eye observed how spring attires the wood and clouds
seek your presence, O God, not because I have managed to see clearly or been true in all things this day, not because I have succeeded in loving or in reverencing those around me, but because I want to see with clarity, because I long to be true and desire to love as I have been loved. Renew my inner sight, make fresh my longings to be true, and grant me the grace of loving this night, that I may end the day as I had hoped to live it, that I may end this day restored to my deepest yearnings, that I may end this day as I intend to live tomorrow, as I intend to live tomorrow.